Recently, the San Francisco 49ers were hit with a surprising piece of news. But before we get into the controversy surrounding the quarterback, there's something I'd like to express. A huge thank you to all of you who have helped me reach 10,000 subscribers. Honestly, this is a milestone I never expected to hit, and I'm truly humbled. To show my appreciation, my wife and I decided to give away a $50 gift card to help you add something to your collection of gear. It's pretty simple to enter. Just make sure you're subscribed and like this video. I'll be picking a winner from those who are subscribed and like the video, and we'll use a random name generator to select someone. The winner will be announced tomorrow in a pinned comment, and they'll have 72 hours to respond, confirming that they saw the comment and that they're the winner. I'll also include some important details in the description below, so make sure to check it out if you're interested. But honestly, it's pretty easy to enter, so I truly encourage you to do so. Now, let's talk about Brock Purdy. There's a lot of debate surrounding him this offseason, and that's no surprise. We'll get into that shortly, but before we dive deeper, let me share something I find quite interesting. At first glance, it might not seem too crazy, but just stick with me for a moment. What was expected of Brock Purdy this season was for him to be a more mobile quarterback, for him to make more plays with his legs. However, the reality was that he wasn't exactly in an ideal situation. He didn't have Christian McCaffrey for several games, which definitely had an impact. On top of that, he also had to work without Trent Williams for a number of crucial games, and he was playing behind a rookie right guard who hadn't yet proven himself at that point in the season. The center of the offensive line was struggling, and the right tackle wasn't performing at a level that inspired confidence, especially after the last postseason. The left guard had a fairly decent performance for the majority of the season, but still, Brock Purdy was dealing with a lot of challenges when he stepped onto the field. So, it's not hard to understand why he was nervous or under pressure at times, especially during the first half of the season. The 49ers, recognizing his potential, chose to implement a more pass-heavy strategy than in previous years. And despite only being in his second full season, Brock Purdy showed he was capable of handling the load. This change in the game plan meant more pressure on him, and as a result, he had to move around a lot more than what might have been ideal. I noticed this in a game against the Cardinals where I was watching with my wife. I saw that Purdy has some serious ability to escape pressure and make plays with his legs, but honestly, I wouldn't want to see him running like that all the time. I was hoping the team would be a little more creative in certain situations. However, his ability to avoid negative plays under pressure was absolutely impressive. He finished the season in 11th place in rushing yards among non-running back players, which is pretty remarkable considering he only had about 50 rushing yards in the previous year. Even though he had significantly fewer rushing attempts than most players ahead of him, he still led the league in scramble yards, showing how effective he was at extending plays and, perhaps more importantly, turning negative situations into first downs. He finished 11th despite the lower number of rushing attempts compared to others in that list. Before he found success, Brock Purdy was already among the NFL's top players in rushing yards outside of the pocket, highlighting his ability to create opportunities on the fly and, more crucially, convert unfavorable situations into positive plays. His 11th place finish is notable, especially when you consider that he attempted far fewer rushes than the majority of those ahead of him. Although I mentioned 50 yards, I don't remember the exact number. I just know it was a lot lower in 2023 compared to 2024. The previous season, he ranked 12th in sack percentage, which isn't extraordinary when you compare it to quarterbacks who threw more than 200 passes. But in 2024, he was ranked 5th in expected points lost per sack, showcasing his ability to effectively avoid sacks, which is a skill that definitely puts him among the top quarterbacks in the league. So, this is something that really stands out about him. In recent years, there's been a lot of debate about his performance, especially among fans. It's not surprising that many question his role as the quarterback, because this type of conversation always seems to come up. When you're supporting someone, it's almost inevitable to face some criticism, as we've seen before. The question is always there. Is he really the ideal quarterback? We all recognize his immense talent, but there's still that lingering doubt. Later, we'll talk about some of the recent controversies regarding his play. One point I do want to highlight is that during the 2023 postseason, he had a strong performance in the games against Green Bay and Detroit. His mobility was key in both games, and they were actually pretty underrated performances. This season, his rushing attempts have gone up a lot, and while this might not have been the plan initially, it has definitely worked out for him. He's been effective, ranking 5th in expected points lost per sack, which is quite impressive. However, something interesting that was pointed out by an analyst is that quarterbacks can sometimes create their own pressure. According to Pro Football Focus, only 4 quarterbacks were more responsible for creating pressure on themselves than Purdy in 2024. This makes sense considering he played a number of games without a top-tier running back, wide receiver, or left tackle. Confidence played a huge role. We didn't discuss how much the absence of a key player affected his performance, because even during the good moments early on in the season, the lack of effective passes was hurting him. When that key player was out, he lost a reliable receiver, which impacted his performance even more. But still, there was this tendency for him to hold onto the ball too long, which resulted in some avoidable sacks and tackles in the previous year, despite having a line that was able to give him some protection. Pro Football Focus data shows that Purdy had one of the worst sack rates when it came to effective drops in the league last year, highlighting a clear area for improvement. So as we look at ways to elevate his game, a couple of intriguing questions arise. One of them is whether his career is on track to improve from this point forward. I'm not saying we should take this debate too seriously, but there's no doubt that he deserves recognition and compensation. The real question, though, is whether he should be making $35 million or $60 million, and that's definitely a valid debate. Still, it's worth considering how the team's decisions will impact his performance, especially when you look at the changes in his resources and the system around him. That's a conversation we should all be having. There's also been some talk about how the team's decisions may have complicated things by letting go of a key player and the challenges surrounding the salary cap, especially with the contract of another player. It's clear that there are questions about the longevity of certain players' careers, and those questions deserve to be addressed. For instance, how much longer will Williams be playing? And what about George? How much time does he have left? Then there's McCaffrey, who is also uncertain for the future. The real challenge here is finding replacements for these players, especially when you have a quarterback who's making $55 million a year. Some concerns have been raised that need to be discussed, but I personally don't agree with them. I don't think it's necessary for Brock Purdy's performance to decline this season. If you're asking whether he'll improve or regress, there are plenty of reasons to believe that he could improve. As for Debo's departure, will it affect Brock Purdy's performance this season? I would say yes, because the connection between Brock and Debo during practices was undeniable. Debo was clearly his go-to target, but now things are changing, and that doesn't mean Debo isn't valuable anymore. He's still a key player, and I think he'll have a more productive season next year compared to this one. But the importance of Debo Samuel to Brock Purdy might not be as obvious moving forward. I do believe that Brock benefits from having players who can win in one-on-one situations, and he's also good against zone defenses. But when he faces teams that play a more aggressive defense, he often relies heavily on anticipation. He doesn't have the same throwing accuracy that some of the top quarterbacks do, those who can thread the needle in tight windows during critical moments. That's not really Brock's strong suit. But let's continue the analysis. When it comes to the salary cap, I'm not as concerned about Brandon Ayuk's contract as some others seem to be. The contract of Brock Purdy is the real issue when it comes to salary cap impact. We know that some player departures were influenced by Brock's impending contract situation. How much longer will Williams be around? That's a fair question. So it's crucial to find replacements for these players. The contract situation is definitely a major concern when we talk about the implications on the salary cap. The departure of some players can be partially attributed to Brock's contract situation, which makes us question how long Williams will keep playing. Eventually, we'll have to discuss the need to find a left tackle replacement, especially since he's a Hall of Fame-worthy talent. This is a tough situation to manage, but we've already seen Brock Purdy adapt, especially in times when Colton McKivitz had some struggles with consistency. His ability to escape pressure has been impressive, so I'm not overly worried about this for now. The 49ers probably have more than a year to find a suitable replacement. We'll see how it all plays out. There's also the issue of George Kittle's longevity. Ideally, we'd love to get a few more seasons out of him. The same goes for Christian McCaffrey, who I believe still has some valuable years ahead of him. I'm not saying Brock Purdy's performance will drop just because of the aging of certain players. In fact, I really think Christian McCaffrey is set for his best season in years. That might sound bold, but I believe he'll be in excellent shape and ready to make a significant impact. While he might not break records, I'm confident he'll contribute in a big way. There might be a slight slow start, but I think his health will be a major asset this season. As part of this, an interesting perspective was shared. It was suggested that the real issue should be whether Brock's performance will decline from here on out. According to that analysis, Brock has maintained a consistent level of play, but his results have varied depending on the talent around him in previous seasons. Moving forward, replicating that level of support will be a challenge, which could distort the perception of his performance, but I'm confident he'll keep playing at a high level. This is a valid point. But before we dive in, don't forget to subscribe to 49ers Zone and hit the like button on this video. Your support helps us keep bringing you the latest updates on the San Francisco 49ers. And don't forget to share your thoughts on the news in the comments below. The buzz surrounding a potential blockbuster move in the NFL is reaching a fever pitch, with reports swirling about the San Francisco 49ers making a serious push to acquire star wide receiver CeeDee Lamb. The speculation has sent shockwaves through the league, as sources indicate the 49ers are exploring all possible avenues to bring in the Pro Bowl talent from the Dallas Cowboys. Could this be the game-changing addition that propels San Francisco back to the Super Bowl? Lamb, who inked a massive 4-year, $136 million contract extension with the Cowboys last year, remains one of the premier wide receivers in the league. Despite another standout season where he notched 101 receptions for 1,194 yards and 6 touchdowns, Dallas endured a disappointing 7-10 finish, missing the playoffs. With the Cowboys reportedly facing financial constraints and looking to reshape their roster, moving Lamb, despite his undeniable talent, might not be off the table. San Francisco, fresh off another deep playoff run, has been aggressive in upgrading its offensive arsenal. While the 49ers already boast a formidable receiving core featuring Deebo Samuel and Brandon Ayuk, adding Lamb to the mix would instantly create one of the most lethal offensive units in the NFL. Sources suggest the 49ers are willing to part with significant draft capital and possibly a key player to make the deal happen. However, several hurdles remain before a deal can be finalized. Lamb's hefty contract and Dallas' reluctance to part with their top receiver could complicate negotiations. Additionally, other teams are rumored to be monitoring the situation, which could drive up the asking price. Still, with the 49ers eyeing a Super Bowl push, they may be willing to go all in to secure the elite playmaker. As discussions continue behind closed doors, the football world watches with bated breath. Will San Francisco pull off one of the biggest trades in recent NFL history, or will the Cowboys hold firm and keep their superstar? One thing is certain, where there's smoke there. That's it for this update. If you enjoyed the video and want to keep receiving exclusive news about the San Francisco 49ers, make sure to subscribe to 49ers Zone and give this video a like. We always look forward to hearing your comments and opinions. See you in the next video.